All right. Are you ready? Are you ready for Oshkosh this year? EAA AirVenture. Uh, I'm not ready. I'm not going, but I'll tell you some cool tips about it. And my name's Graham Wilson. Welcome to the Superpilotish channel. I'll be telling you about some Oshkosh stuff you might want to think about, and I'll be telling you. I'll be telling you that in my basement. So what is this thing? Every year, the Experimental Aircraft Association over in the States, the EAA, they put on AirVenture at Whitman Regional Airport in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And it's basically a mecca for pilots to go to. You're supposed to make a pilgrimage there at least once in your pilot life. But I haven't gone there yet. Just one thing led to another, and just never got around to going there. Eventually, one day. But yeah, so I saw this. I'm always interested in how they get so many airplanes in and out of that airport. It becomes the busiest airport in the world for a while. And so it's just fascinating how the FAA pulls that off, and all the controllers and pilots all working together. And I saw you might know the Steve Thorne's channel, Flightchops, and he did a video about how he did an arrival, and Dave, his well, I guess partner in crime, Dave, he they went to Oshkosh last year, and they kind of showed the arrivals and the and landings, and I was like, wow, I've never seen that before. So it's a little bit weird flying in there. Until I saw the Flightchops video, I didn't know that you got to crank and bank and chop and drop so much. So it's like, now as an instructor, that just makes me cringe because you teach students to do things a certain way, and all of a sudden the FAA says, "All right, go throw it on a dot, man." And you're like, what do you do? You're not trained for that. So I was thinking, to increase the flight safety, I'll give you some instructor tips on what you could practice to do. Maybe push yourself a little bit further out of your little comfort zone, but still do it safely, and make things better if you are going to fly to the 2023 AirVenture. And hey, Dan, and hey, Gray OG. See you there. Okay, so the number one thing you're going to do if you're flying into the the big, it's not even really an air show, it's just like an air extravaganza for days kind of thing. But if you're flying in there, everybody knows already, okay, you got to download the FAA notice. And like, I was looking at it, I'll put a link in the description below. I kind of peeked at it last year before, and I just kind of peeked at it here today. And it's 32 pages. I didn't feel like printing it out because I'm not actually going, but actually printing it out on a piece of paper is probably a good idea, even though you got your iPad and ForeFlight. Oh yeah, I got my backup batteries and everything, and yeah, okay, great. And then everything fails, but paper doesn't fail on you. So I would say, yeah, be extra safe. Don't put it on get it on the piece of paper. And another reason for that is that if it's on a piece of paper, you can just all the things that you like, take a look through the FAA notice, and see, and you can get your actual highlighter out and highlight, okay, this pertains to me, this, I have to know this. It'll stand out on your page, and that's better than flipping through a PDF document while you're checking weather and looking for traffic on your iPad and getting distracted by radios and stuff. Oh, there's that pink thing. Oh yeah, 90 knots. Done. So, talking about 90 knots, if you are going to be doing the different VFR arrivals, I'm just going to talk about the VFR stuff there. Yeah, you're doing your VFR arrival, you go to some place, and then you got to follow. I was reading it today. You got to follow the next plane in front of you. Everybody just kind of, where's my KD-12X? Yeah, so the way that all these airplanes that go into the busiest airport in the world, they don't even talk on the radio or nothing. There's a controller on the ground. we'll say this is the air traffic controller on the ground. All right, and they're looking up with their binoculars and everything. That is a good-looking controller. And so you're flying over your checkpoint like this. And then this guy will be talking to you on the radio, and you'll say, hey, uh, tail dragger KD-12X Mark II. Okay, keep flying, follow the railroad tracks, and then KD-12 Mark 1 follow, maintain half-mile separation. So the thing is, you get, and then there's another plane that comes in behind. So everybody's flying about a half mile away, and the controller on the ground is looking up, saying, "Okay, yeah, you do this," or "Hey, you're too close, peel off," and then you go away. That's that. So, and oh, hey, Jim. Okay, so. Okay. Anyways, yeah. So when they say in the notice to go 90 knots, that means 90 knots airspeed. So anytime they tell you to do something in aviation, it's always airspeed. So one thing that could get people messed up is if they're looking at their GPS too much, or they're looking at their iPad, that could be reading out your ground speed. And then you'll say, why am I going way too fast? Why am I getting so close on this guy? And the controller's telling me to break it off. So yeah, we're going to say your 90 knots airspeed. So yeah, okay, we'll say airspeed. There, 90 knots airspeed, and here we'll call this tips or exercises. Tips. It's faster. Okay, and then so one of the things. So what I wanted to do here is give five YouTube things that could help you improve your approach and landing and taxiing even into the AirVenture this year. So you're going to be following 80 knots airspeed, but did you read the fine print in the notice that said, or if you can't go that fast, max power or maximum power? I mean, they got ultralights going in there. They have, maybe some old Piper Cub that's underpowered, and maybe you can't even go 90 knots. It's like maybe it's a saggy old engine that has like less horsepower than when it was brand new. And so yeah, you can they say to find a similar type of aircraft. So if you're in a Cessna 172 and you have the choice between flying behind the Cessna 172 or flying behind the Piper Cub, take the 172 because that's the one that you're in, and you guys will be able to fly about the same speed. So when you are going out there, have you ever practiced flying at exactly 90 knots in your airplane? Most people haven't, so that's something to practice. And so what would you want to know with that 90 knots? Okay, what power setting would you use for that? Would you use any flaps for that? So that's something even just to think about, like, when was the last time you flew 90 knots and at a consistent altitude? So the one thing I would say about that too is that, let's just say you do get stuck behind that slow Piper Cub, and you're in a Mooney or something like that. That's a speedy airplane. Could you follow him with full flap? What power setting? Would your gear warning be going off on you or something? Like, it's weird. Would you put your gear down and follow him? So yeah, so that'd be something to mess around with, different configurations and airspeeds. Try to fly first at 90 knots. Okay, how many RPM is that? 2,300 probably, or something close. In little airplanes, it's usually about that. And then you would say, okay, what's my maximum flap speed here that I can use? Can I fly? Now, if you are flying that slow, one of the things that Steve brought up in the Flightchops video was that on his airplane, the RV-14 that he flies, is that it's designed to go pretty speedy. So if he's flying at 90 knots, there's not much airflow going over the engine, and the oil temperature comes up on them. So that's legit, and that can happen on a lot of airplanes. So don't forget, back in your ground school days when they were talking about putting flaps on your airplane, if you like, it's not just there to lower your stall speed, but it also gives you more of a, if you're putting your flaps on. Okay, I don't have any flaps on these things, but if you had the flaps, like, say you're flying around really slow, you'd be like, and you're flying around really slow, you need that higher angle of attack to be going slow at a certain power setting. But then if you add flaps to that, okay, you'd still be going pretty much just as fast, but now the flaps give you a little bit more nose down attitude there. Now you got more airflow over your engine. So even if you're putting along at, 85 knots, if you throw some flap on there, that'll cool your engine better. So there's another tip for you. If you're flying into Oshkosh. Okay, now here's another thing that anybody could do. You can do this. Well, it's kind of like how when you learn how to drive your car and you go out to the mall parking lot, and then you can't. There's a few poles you can hit and maybe one other car over there, but you go there when it's closed and you can kind of drive around in the parking lot. You got lots of room to play with. That's kind of what you want to do in your airplane too, if you're trying something new. And we're going to talk about. Okay, so when you're coming into land and I didn't know this until I saw Steve's video, was that you're coming in, you got to do some serious chop and drop, like power idle, get her down on the runway. And if you've never done that too much before, that could be pretty disturbing. So you would probably want to practice that. So we're going to say chop and drop, as they say. Chop the power and drop that nose. Okay, and you're going to be turning when you're doing that. And you might even have to do a little bit of slipping and stuff like that. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm running out of room here. Okay. So depending on what your turns, gotta get my high tech eraser here. Okay, so what you're gonna do next is you leave your airport, you're flying out, and you're gonna try to fly 90 knots. And once you kind of got that, fine. Okay, you're gonna climb up. You're gonna get a whole bunch of altitude because you're gonna start messing around in the air. This is where you're messing around doing donuts in your car in the parking lot, not on the road. That comes later. But anyways, yeah. So you're gonna practice your chop and drop skills, and when you're coming into land, you might be the runway might be coming this way, but you'll start off here and you got to chop the power, descend, turn, come in and land like that. So if you're just used to doing a nice, perfectly square circuit or pattern to come in and land, or you're always doing some straight in approach at your local airport, get up, get some altitude. I'd say probably for 3,000, 4,000 feet above the ground, and practice your chop and drop. And while you're doing that, okay, take a look at that little instrument there and do a 30-degree banking turn at maybe 90 knots, 85, different flap configurations. And hi, really? And so it's like if you're doing that kind of a descending turn, you got your flaps, and you just kind of get used to that, because most people, there's a lot of people out there that they've been flying for a long time and they've been taking up their passengers, and you don't want to get your passengers all freaked out. And usually a 30-degree bank turn will freak out the passengers. And most people feel once they call it a rate one turn, or a 2-minute turn. It's kind of like the standard turns that they do for instrument flying. But anything over that, that's pretty comfortable. But once you start getting over that, it's not necessarily dangerous, but this is a little uncomfortable. So so we're gonna do so you're gonna practice that. Practice descending 30-degree bank turn, and you're gonna do this to the left and to the right. Get used to it, because depending on what runway you get assigned when you're coming in. Hey, Travis. And then depending on what runway you're coming in on, you might have to be turning right or left to get there. So it's not just a regular left-handed pattern that you're normally used to. This is getting pretty airplane-y. But anyways, I would do that and practice that. When was the last time you did a slipping turn? You don't want to do a skidding turn. So just remember, if you are going to be doing your slipping turn, you're cool. sort of keep your eye on the airspeed. It's not as accurate as if you're just flying along normally, but it's in the ballpark within 5 knots or so for most little airplanes. And yeah, so if you're going to be doing, say, you're doing a turn to the left, here we go. I'm turning to the left. And then I always tell my students, step on the high wing. So that's this one here. So you give it some right rudder and it'll slip and turn. So you're going to kind of, that's your slip and turn, slipping turn. And you want to slip, not skid. Skids when you get into big troubles. And that's why you practice that up nice and high. You get your altitude and you can practice that. Oh, hey Harold, hey Rich. And yeah, so that was your number 2. Okay, the other thing I saw in the Flightchops video was about landing on the dots. So they'll say, okay, land on the orange dot, land on the pink dot. There's all these different colored dots that they put on the runway. So you might have 2 guys landing at the exact same time, and one guy will be like another 1,500, 3,000 feet down the runway. He's landing there, and you're landing at the same time. Like they're putting a whole bunch of people on the ground at the same time there too. So they'll say, okay, landed the red dot or landed the blue dot or something like that, orange dot, and then. So it's really weird for some people that every time they come into land, they aim at the numbers, or they aim at the they take it in on the PAPI lights, or they're landing around the 1,000-foot marks or something like that. So what do we got here? So the next thing that you're going to practice before you get to Oshkosh, we'll say land at a different spot on the runway than you're used to. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's, you got to like kind of, if you're always used to aiming at the numbers or aiming at the threshold, or you're doing that all the time, like to break out of that. Like I've seen lots of people, I tell them, oh yeah, just land down there, and they're like, oh, I can't do it. Like they don't know how to set themselves up for it. And it's really not a big deal, as long as you just imagine your numbers are up there and just go there. But it's one thing saying it, another thing doing it. And oh, hey Adam. Okay, land at different spot. Okay, so I've done this. Now I'm going to get a double whiteboard here. Okay, land at a different spot. So I'm going to draw a runway over here on my backup. And this is, I like doing this I used to do this all the time for when I was teaching flight instructors, to get them used to or if you're going to get somebody going into a shorter runway, just imagine that your big long, like here in Windsor, we got like our longest runway is like 9,000 feet, but the 1,000-foot marks are from the threshold, and then there's about another 500 feet past that. So if I say, okay, land at the, okay, we're going to have, I'll draw some marks here. Okay, maybe we got might have an intersection up here, might have an intersection here. All right, amazing skills here on the superpilotish channel. Okay, there we go. Okay, we got a runway here. We got our center line down the runway. Always land on the center line, try to. And okay, we'll say this is runway 25 here. And the other way will be 07. Okay. So we'll say this isn't Windsor. We're on runway 25 here. So you could say like, okay, student, they always want to aim at the numbers, right? Okay. And then you can say, all right. And you don't have to be with an instructor to practice this. Okay. Land at the 1,000-foot marks, or maybe the 1,500-foot marks, or 2,000-foot marks. But what I used to do to get my like if somebody's going to become a flight instructor, they have to like be that much better than your private pilot license or your commercial license kind of thing. And I would tell them like, okay, I'd say land at the 1,000-foot marks, and they'd say, okay, sure, I'll land at the 1,000-foot marks here. I mean, and then I say, no, the other 1,000-foot marks, and we're coming down here. So there'd be about 1,500 feet left here. So, which is easily done. If you put the wheels down here, you can come to a complete stop in easily 1,000 feet, even on a really hot day. So it's like there's lots of room, but it freaks people out the first time they do it. I used to do that all the time, and you got lots of room. But if you're used to looking here and you're landing at these numbers and you got you got a mile you can do before you go to Oshkosh. Now they have their big long runways and they'll have different dots. So they'll have maybe a blue dot. I only got so many colors here. We got a green dot over here. And you could even imagine if you're looking at the notice before you go there, you can say, all right, well, I'm going to practice landing at whatever dot this would be and this would be. And then hopefully your airport's not too busy and you can pull that off. So here we go. We got our, so you can practice landing at the blue dot or the green dot or the red dot. And then just try that at your own airport. And if they don't have the dots, you can say, I'm going to land at this intersection or that one. And then, play around with that. And then by the time you have to go do some wonky landing on the red dot, you'll be like, oh, okay, I landed on the red dot before back at home. Piece of cake. And you go. And you got all your airspeeds and everything. And you're used to banking it in more. And doing the other stuff I was telling you about. Piece of cake. But if you're out of practice with it, then it can get a little scary. And unfortunately, every year or two, it seems like somebody's banking and cranking too much and they kind of plow it in at Oshkosh, and that's no good. So that's kind of why I'm doing the video here. This is what you can practice. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, hey, practice this before you go to Oshkosh. So what's the other thing I got here? We were going to talk about that. Land at your different spot. Oh, and then another thing that's a great thing to practice anyways. And I don't know, in Canada, it's required for the commercial license. It's not required for the private pilot license. It's usually people will train this before they go solo at least once or twice. And then where they call it a power off 180 approach, or it's to simulate an engine failure. So we'll say, this is another thing you can practice is your power off 180. I don't know if they do that in the United States, or even if they do, when was the last time you did that? Could have been, 15 years ago. Can you do it again? Probably not. You got to practice these things. So let's just say we're on we're going to be on runway 07 here, going that way. And this is what our pattern looks like roughly. Okay, this is turning into spaghetti on my secondary whiteboard, but okay, we're going to fly. I guess I better draw a perfect airplane here too. All right. We got our airplanes. We're flying around going like this. And so what you can try to do is, you request from the control tower what maneuver you want to do. And then you could just say you want to land at the 1,000 foot marks over here. Pull your power back, do a chop and drop, and see if you can come around here. Now, the thing is, for your flight test for the commercial license anyways here in Canada, you have to do that without touching the throttle at all. So you have to glide it all the way in. But you can do what you want, at Oshkosh. Use whatever power you have, whatever slipping you want to do, whatever flaps you have to do to get it safely down there, and always watch your airspeed. And there we go. So that's another thing, the power off 180. And just so you don't freak out, when was the last time you ever taxied on grass? Maybe you never have. So a lot of people haven't. So the other one, they always say go out there and touch grass. I say taxi on grass. There you go. Taxi on some grass somewhere. And the key there is that, watch once, like if you do it once, you'll kind of get the hang of it. It just takes about, once to get on the grass and you realize, wow, I need a whole lot of throttle to get going here. Or the thing is, if there are any little divots in the ground or bumps or anything like that, if you're going really fast, you don't want to be like hitting a gopher hole or whatever it might be. So kind of don't go too fast if you're taxiing, and if you're at Oshkosh, there's going to be a huge it's going to be a huge tendency to want to get out of the way, or like it's kind of, wow, I got to do whatever I got to do. And the thing is, there's a guy coming behind me. Don't worry about that. It's like they have, the marshalers are all trained there. They have the best air traffic controllers in the United States are working there for all these planes. So what you like, you still the rules of the sky still apply, where the pilot in command is always responsible, right? Yeah, whether you're in Canada, the United States, England, New Zealand, Australia, wherever, South Africa, wherever you're learning how to fly, the test question is always, who is responsible for this? Pilot in command. So even though, especially if you're flying VFR, like you would be going into Oshkosh. So I mean, the controller can say, okay, turn your base now. You're like, whoa, I'm not turning base. My stall warning horn is going off. I got to get some power and get flying here again. This is dangerous. So it'd be like, no, I get to do what I want, man. And yeah, and the thing is, the air traffic controllers they're trained for anything that could pop up, like for communications failures. Maybe, how many times the way I was, anytime I've ever seen a YouTube video about Oshkosh, it's so busy on the radio. It's right after, and that's another thing. Oh, I didn't really add that on here, but if you're used to flying into you know what? That's so important. I'll write it down. 6, count them, 6 things that you can do. And okay, we're going to call this 6. Take a trip to a busy airport. So we'll say go to busy airport. One that maybe you're not familiar with too much. Of course, all the stuff you could do if you're feeling a little bit, I don't know if I want to do what this guy's telling me. Bring an instructor up with you, pay the guy $50 or whatever, and they'll keep you from killing yourself. That's what we do. So anyways, yeah, so number 6, go to a busy airport, maybe with some more traffic that you're not quite used to. Okay. And all right, so we're going to do a little recap on this. All right, 6 things that you can do to I don't know, improve your skills before you go to Oshkosh. So here we go. Practice. Okay, to find out what power setting and flap setting you want to do for 90 knots. Remember, a little bit of flap can keep your engine a little bit cooler. Practice that exercise. Get 4,000 feet above ground level. Chop and drop, get the power back to idle, 30-degree bank turns, slipping turns, not skidding turns, right and left. That'll get you used to, and then if you're doing that closer to the ground, you're already used to it. But keep it not more than 30 degrees bank, because anything over that, you're kind of risking a little bit more stall spin kind of stuff. We want to keep away from that. But under 30 degrees bank, the amount of it's kind of ground schooly, but yeah, you're gonna be pretty good. Okay, number 3, land at different spots on the runway. Imagine yourself landing this is just like a chair flying, like before you go solo. Yeah, imagine yourself landing at the blue dot, the green dot, or the red dot. Give it a little practice. The other one is your power off 180 procedure. So you're doing your circuit, you're in the pattern, cut your power a beam where you want to land. Just see if you can go in there and do it. That'll also get you used to turning while you're a little bit closer to the ground, and you won't freak out as much. And taxi on, go out there and touch some grass with your wheels. If you've never done it before, and just watch your speed so you don't hit any bumps, and you don't want to prop strike, that's for sure. That can happen if you bottom out the landing gear on some airplanes. It's not there's not much clearance there. Or even if you hit grass, I know for Piper Tomahawk that I used to fly, the maintenance manual, they said that even if you went off the runway and the grass was long, if they considered it a propeller strike, if the grass was long and the RPM changed on the engine. So if it actually slowed the engine down, maybe it didn't hit, there's nothing damage to the propeller, they still consider it an engine, a prop strike if the RPM was dropped going through long grass. So anyways, also go to a busy airport, get used to hearing a little more chatter on the run, on the radio. And for all those things there, you can always always pay an instructor to go up with you, and they'd be happy to help you out. So here we go. Yeah, that's about it. And yeah, I didn't do my little StreamYard thing here today. I still got to figure out something about how to do like the thumbnail thing that I take, and I got a little more figuring out there, but it was kind of cool doing the StreamYard. Oh, and I've been emailing Dr. David Perodin, the safety doc, and things are looking good for him to be on my show next week. So I'm going to see if I can interview him. And so far, so good. We'll see how his schedule works out. And okay, I'm just going to go back, see if there's any questions here, and then do a little post-production. I'll put a link in the description below to the FAA notice about Oshkosh. You can read all about the fun procedures, print it out, highlight it. Okay, and what else we got here? I'm just checking a few little questions. Okay, Wrench is saying that he noticed. I noticed that I approach more steeply than many. Do they need a certain angle? Oh, okay. Yeah, and then yeah, Wrench is also saying here. This is what I wish I had the StreamYard thing. I could bring your comment up here, Wrench. But yeah, it's one of those things that, yeah, like Wrench was kind of saying here that he wouldn't want to do it by himself. That's another thing that the Flightchops video, I'll put a link to that too in the description below. They're saying that, yeah, if you're going there by yourself, you're looking for traffic like crazy, and it would be very mentally taxing to, and you think about it too, you're getting there after a flight. You might be a little tired, a little dehydrated, something like that. And all of a sudden the radios are going off and there's traffic all over the place. And if you have a ForeFlight on your iPad, there's going to be all these, it'll look like you're getting swarmed by traffic, even though it's like a couple miles away. You'd be like, I'm going to hit something. So that would be freaky. And I didn't notice Vanessa Kitty popped in here. Hi. Yeah. So, I mean, anyone that I've ever talked to, I've known quite a few people that have flown in there. But yeah, usually people will go in there with a buddy or something like that. Even passengers to help out finding traffic in that. And Adam's asking, did I see the Bonanza that stalled on base to final but then saved it last second? No, I didn't see that. Bonanza, V-tailed Dr. Killer. Is that the fork-tailed Dr. Killer? I don't know. That's one thing. I would never, ever buy a V-tailed Bonanza. Just, I don't know. I'm pretty not superstitious, but those things, man, it's just like, it's I just couldn't do it. What do we got here? Yeah, here we go. Okay. Yeah, Wrench usually mows with a Cub Cadet. Actually, I saw a Cub Cadet lawnmower the other day. I was driving out in the county, and yeah. So there we go. Yeah, that's about it. And I got to do a little bit of post-production, and then I'm going out to your airport, Adam. So anyways, got to do some flying this afternoon, pay some bills. And yeah, so that's about it. Okay, so today is Wednesday. So I'll be back on Friday because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern. We'll just kind of shut her down, and thank you for watching. Bye.